Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we have yet another brand new PNSO model to take a look at, and this is definitely one that I was super excited about because it is Jennie, the Centrosaurus. And if there is one ceratopsian that I absolutely love that we have a severe lack in model form of, it is the Centrosaurus. Of course, there is the Beasts of the Mesozoic version as well, but that is an entirely different style figure than what we see here with this Centrosaurus from PNSO. Again, the sculpt looks gorgeous, an absolutely incredible looking sculpt for a Centrosaurus, and of course, the paintwork is very nice and very naturalistic as well. I really like the paintwork that PNSO applies to their figures because they always find those picture-perfect tones of color that, in my opinion, look like they would be the colors of the dinosaurs. As far as the box art goes, you can see that we have an image of the Centrosaurus here on the front, as well as, again, the PNSO logo up here on the top. We have a nice shot of the head sculpt of the Centrosaurus. Here on the back, same thing again that we had just seen on the front, and then not really too much else going on. We've got another image of the Centrosaurus over here on the side, so let's go ahead, pop this box open, and check out this beautiful ceratopsian. So straight away, we've got some fun stuff included. It appears as though we've got ourselves a poster of some kind included with our Centrosaurus. And whoa, is that ever beautiful. Look at that. That is fantastic. If the light wasn't absolutely glaring all the nice details and image away. A really nice looking image here, a really nice poster of a Centrosaurus with a beautiful, very flashy paint scheme. Absolutely love that paint scheme. I may have to repaint one of these at some point, buy another one and then repaint one to give it that paint scheme because I definitely love the paint scheme here on that poster. And then we've also got a booklet as per usual when it comes to the PNSO releases. And this booklet, of course, is going to be filled with all kinds of information on the Centrosaurus, as well as some really nice images of the model itself. You can see again how fantastic this Centrosaurus looks. Again, another really nice image of the figure. Pretty much just tons of images of the figure here. Basically a nice photo gallery showing off. Oh, there we go. There's that one that we were just looking at in the poster. And again, I really love that paint scheme. That is such a beautiful, very vibrant paint scheme, but again, nice, dark, naturalistic tones overall. I almost wish they would have given the figure that coloration because I really, really like that. And we have lots and lots of information throughout. Again, as usual, some really nice kind of hand-drawn images as well. And you always get a ton of stuff with these booklets from PNSO. Again, just overloaded with awesomeness are these booklets. So definitely a very fun aspect of any PNSO model is the fact that you get a booklet that tells you all about the dinosaur and then gives you tons of really cool artwork as well. And then here is our Centrosaurus, and definitely a looker, that is for sure. I really like the colors of this one. Nice, very dark greens mixed with some beautiful variations of browns throughout. And then, of course, having some blues up there on the frills, similar to that really colorful version that we had seen in the poster. But again, really nice. And this is similar to the Triceratops, where I had seen quite a bit of people that were kind of complaining about the actual paint application on the figure. And again, it's another one of those situations where here in hand, I really think the figure is much nicer than people realize. It looks way better than what I was expecting, as it always does, and definitely another very nice looking paint job for a PNSO model. But the only way to truly tell how nice it really is with a closer look, so let's go ahead and do that right now. So starting up here at the head sculpt of our Centrosaurus, you can see some really nice scale detail throughout. Again, very large scales as you get up closer to the nasal horn, but as you transition down into the snout a little more, you can see a lot finer of a scaling, but all of the scales continue to have kind of varying sizes all together. You can also see some beautiful detailing as we lead up into the horn, as well as a lot of color variation on that horn. It starts out with a very dark brown, similar in tone to the dark brown we have here, but slightly different, I would say, and then transitions to kind of a light brown while still maintaining some color difference in there. And then at the tip of the horn, we almost have like a reddish dry brushing, so it looks really neat the way that they have painted that up, giving the horn quite a bit of coloration. And that horn being one of the Centrosaurus most defining features, I would say that was a very good choice in the part of PNSO. You can also see the nostrils have a nice pinkish tone included in them, so that highlights very nicely right there. You could see the beak as well. Sports some fantastic sculpt and detail as far as the very fine detail. The figure overall has kind of a grumpy look to his face, which I really do quite like. The jaw is not articulated like the recent Triceratops was, so you could see that aspect as well. And you can also see that the eye is painted beautifully. We have a nice yellowish coloration for the eye, nice black pupil, and the eye sports a fantastic gloss coat, so it shines like a real eye would. You can also see some nice creasing and everything there around the eye. You can see as we lead up into the frill, we have some more really nice scale detail. Again, very vibrant detailing throughout the course of the figure, and you can really see how nice it stands out in this area of the frill because it's very nicely dry brushed over, but also sports a really nice lighter green tone. And those scales in that vicinity just pop so nicely. As you lead up into the frill a little further, you can see some nice variation of color as we have lighter and darker shades of blue, kind of like a light blue in the center of that area, but then a darker blue that borders around it, as well as some variation of dark purples. So we have some very flashy coloration in that area, and again, very nice and realistic, I think, at the same time. You can see these spikes up here on the top are also very nicely sculpted and very nicely painted. Pretty much every aspect of the figure has really realistic looking paint application, again using nice dry brushing and washes, and you can see that this area here, as far as those spikes on the top of the frill, are very nicely dry brushed over, kind of giving them almost a dirty like appearance, but also again a little bit of a weathered like appearance. And you can see again that the figure in general just sports that really grumpy look to it, almost reminiscent to the prehistoric beasts version of the monoclonius, something that was recently pointed out by Greg from Dino Scream. He pointed out the fact that it definitely has some similarities to the monoclonius from prehistoric beasts, and I absolutely love that stop motion film, and again I absolutely love that aspect of this figure. As you move back here into the throat region, you can see the throat is very nicely elaborated here on the underside, sports some fantastic scale detail down there, kind of larger scaling here on the underside, a lot of creasing in that area right there. As you move back up into the neck, though, you can see that the scale detail definitely becomes more fine. You can see a ton of creasing up here on the top of the neck. You can make out the back of the frill a little bit, but there's not really too much that you can see because the dinosaur has its head kind of in a position almost leaning up a little bit, so the frill's kind of hard to get into on the back of the frill, but you can see there's a nice greenish tone back there. If you look here on the top, though, you start to see some fantastic dark greens that seem to have been applied almost with a wash because the browns are kind of dry brushed over, so the scales you can see on top of the greens are very nicely highlighted with a light brown. And they just mesh back and forth in such a really nice, very realistic way. Like, none of the green kind of stripes are like too thick or too dark. Like, it's just all kind of blending together, and I really like that about the paint job of the figure. And you can see again, as we move down here into the front leg, you have some beautiful creasing right there, again behind the leg, showing the movement of this front leg here, kind of wrinkling the skin right there. Also right here in the rear, as this leg is pushing into the stomach, you can see a ton of creasing all the way from the hip down to the knee in the stomach region right there. So fantastic skin detail on the part of PNSO. You can see some beautiful muscle definition here moving down the front leg. The elbow is present. Again, lots of really nice color variation, as well as some fantastic dry brushing. You can see starting up here and running down the course of the leg, really highlighting some of those larger osteoderm-like scales as well as the smaller scales. Beautiful wrinkling here in the joint of the elbow. Again, a really nice foot sculpt as per usual when it comes to a PNSO ceratopsian. The toes are nicely sculpted out. You can see some nice creasing in the wrist, and then the nails also sport kind of like a tannish brown sort of a color. And then as you move back up here, you can see the hip bone is pretty nicely elaborated, as well as the spinal column running along the back. Again, more of those beautiful skin folds right there, and some really nice muscle definition in the thigh. You can really pick up on some of those like osteoderm-like scales throughout that area. And then you can see a ton of skin wrinkles and stuff right here leading off of the thigh, as well as some skin wrinkles leading into the tail. More nice creasing in the joint of the knee as well as the kneecap itself, and then a very large bulging calf muscle. pretty much what you would expect to see, because this is a very strong dinosaur supporting a lot of weight with those legs. Again, as you move down the course of the leg, it looks fantastic with a really nice foot sculpt on the back. You can kind of see how this foot is like just planting into the ground, and this foot is just leaving the ground as it's taking a step. And then you lead out into the tail, and we continue that same style of paint where we have those really smooth greenish stripes, but they're so blended in a really nice realistic way. I absolutely love the way that this one is painted. You can see the underside as well. You can really get a good idea of the curve in the tail from the underside, but you can also see some nice fine scaling here on the underside of the tail. As we reach the cloaca, you can see that the scale detail picks up in size on the underside. Beautiful dry brushing down here as well, again, to elaborate that scale detail very nicely. You can also see even the undersides of the feet are really nicely detailed. And then when you come over here to this side, you can see that the ceratopsian has a slight turn in the head, very slightly to the left, but that's not really going to cause too much of a dramatic difference in the appearance from this side any more so than what we had seen on the opposing side. But you can see again, coloration-wise, we have lots of color in the head with darker and lighter shades of like grays and browns and greens, and again the blues up in the frill, as well as that really nice yellow eye. And then as we move back into the neck, with the dinosaur not having too much of a different positioning to it compared to the opposing side, you can see that the neck looks pretty much the same. Again, the scale detail in the throat looks great. Nice creasing there as you move up toward the back of the neck. And then as we reach the body, you can see more of the stomach region on this one, because again, the legs are pulling apart more so than they are on the opposing side, so you can see more stretching over here. Again, some nice creasing here at the base of the leg leading into the body, but you can see the skin stretching off of the rear leg. Again, very nice muscular looking legs. Pretty much the same positioning, I would say, almost as the recent Triceratops as far as the positioning of the legs and the way it's walking. But again, really nice foot sculpt, beautifully sculpted wrist, really nicely painted nails. And then again, you can lead back up here into the stomach. You can really see the plethora of osteoderm-like scales throughout the course of the figure, even picking up on the rib cage a little bit right there. And then as you lead up here into the thigh, you can see like a slight hint of like a very light, almost yellowish green that shows up briefly in the figure. And then again, more of those darker greens blending beautifully with the browns. The hip bone as well as the muscle definition, again, nicely shown off in the sculpt. And then the calf muscle looks great down here as you lead down into the foot. I do apologize if you hear some kids going crazy, because we have some nephews here right now that are just absolutely going insane upstairs. But you can see again how the toes are leaving the ground, looking very nice as it's walking along. More creasing here as you lead back into the tail, and then you lead out into that really nice curve for the tail. So this is a gorgeous looking Centrosaurus, and I can't even begin to tell you how happy I am to have such a beautiful looking Centrosaurus now in my collection. As far as a size goes, of course, it's not all that large. You can see that here in comparison to my hand. And being a Centrosaurus, you wouldn't expect it to be too super huge. But for a length, you're looking at about 6¼ inches or 16 centimeters. And then for a height, about 2¾ inches or 7 centimeters. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, and Robert Muldoon in comparison to the Centrosaurus. And I think with these guys here in comparison, you can really see the smaller stature of this figure, especially there in comparison to the Colovosaurus, showing that it's a kind of in the Attack Pack size range. But for another comparison, here is the more recent Doyle the Triceratops we have just reviewed here on the channel in comparison to the Centrosaurus, showing you a massive size difference between the Triceratops and the Centrosaurus, both again from PNSO right here, but also showing you that both are gorgeous ceratopsians. Here is the PNSO Iguanodon, a figure that I absolutely am in love with, so I figured it would be a fun one to bring in here and compare with the Centrosaurus. Again, showing you the smaller size, but yet again showing you just how beautiful these PNSO figures are. Unfortunately, again, there aren't very many Centrosaurus figures, so I don't really have many to compare this with. The closest size-wise would be the Beast of the Mesozoic Juvenile here, and you can see, again, the more monoclonius version, and you can get a pretty good idea roughly of what the size is in comparison to the PNSO version. Yet again, still smaller than even the Beast of the Mesozoic version, which is actually pretty sizable. And then for another comparison, just because it's sitting here beside me and it's a figure that many people have, here is the Kenner Jurassic Park Dimetrodon in comparison to the Centrosaurus. And then for one final comparison, here is the Collect Day standard version of the Dinosaur in comparison to the Centrosaurus. So hopefully one of these figures you would have had, and hopefully one of these figures would help to give you a rough idea of the size. So this brand new Centrosaurus from PNSO is another in the long list of incredible PNSO figures. They just continue to pile on more and more figures and continue to blow me out of the water with each and every one. And this Centrosaurus again is a great example of just how good PNSO can be. The sculpt is incredibly nice, sporting every ounce of detail that could possibly be sculpted onto this model, and it is all very vibrant, which is always a huge plus when it comes to PNSO figures. They always sport really vibrant detail that just pops so nicely on the sculpt. And you can see that in every ounce of scale detail, every ounce of skin folds, it is very vibrant and really appealing overall as far as the sculpt goes. The paint as well, again, I actually really quite like it. I have heard some people complaining about it, but I think the paintwork here is fantastic, and it looks a lot better in hand than a lot of the images I had seen of other people's online. And I really like the paint scheme of this one because I like how the brown just blends so nicely with the green, like they just kind of combine together, but you can still pick out the different tones very nicely. It's just extremely appealing to the eye, and also looks very nice and natural on the figure. And of course we have the flashiness up there in the frill, so we have a little bit of bright coloration there. But overall, again, a very appealing sculpt, a very appealing paint scheme, really nice size as well, as it's not anything too large or too small, so it's pretty much a perfect size as far as the Centrosaurus goes. So as a whole, this is a definite win yet again from PNSO if you ask me, and another gorgeous ceratopsian in quite the long list now of ceratopsians they have released. So if you are interested in this, I will include a link in the description to where you can pick this up on both the Amazon PNSO store and the Aliexpress PNSO store. So make sure you check those links in the description, go buy this beautiful Centrosaurus, and make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.